Hey, how about that team win? Hell yeah! That's a team win. We stood in here, all right, and had a sour taste on our mouth Sunday, did we not?
Yes, sir.
And I asked you to respond. Offense, defense, special teams, all of it out there, picking each other up. That's what great teams do, guys. We pick each other up. But I am so proud of you for how you responded, okay? I asked you to own it, flush it. We did. I trust in the people in this room, and we're going to do it together, all right? Now, we got to be smart this weekend, right? You guys are off Friday, Saturday, Sunday. You've earned it. You're not off Monday. You've earned it. You've earned it, but we got to be smart. Take care of each other. Team on three. 1, 2, 3.
That's right, they're not off on Monday and neither are we. Welcome back to another episode of the Believeland Brits podcast with myself, Josh Henwood, Sean, Owain and Jen. How was your weekend, guys? I mean, Victory Friday, Victory Saturday, Victory Sunday, and now Victory Monday. I'm feeling pretty victorious at the moment, Jen.
Yeah, I'm all good. It was quite a quiet weekend, to be fair.
I know I was able to actually enjoy Red Zone and practically not give a care in the world, especially with it being so early on in the year. Owain, obviously you joined me on Friday for our pod reviewing the game. Were you able to just chill out in the end, or were there just musings from around the league of which have you on your toes?
I had some money on some of the games yesterday, so I wasn't completely stress-free, but no, I enjoyed it. There was some really good finishes to games yesterday, especially in the 6 o'clock slate. So it was a good viewing yesterday, and yeah, having the win in the bank is nice, isn't it? You can just sort of calm down a bit and watch your rivals unfortunately win yesterday, but
yeah, say la vie, unfortunately, on that one. And I have, you know, when it's a Victory Friday, Saturday and Sunday, when on the Sunday I don't get a single text worrying or any kind of emotion being shown from Sean. It was, you know that there's nothing riding on it at that point. Sean, how was your Sunday?
Very nice, mate. To be honest, the action was good, as Owain said. I think we're going to touch a little bit on the league tonight, as it's a bit of a strange week for us, obviously having the game a few days removed. But I actually felt a lot better about the Browns watching the action yesterday, to be honest. I think we're actually a lot better than what we possibly thought we were, but we'll get on to that because I think we've got a few different opinions between us as well. So, yeah, looking forward to getting stuck in as always.
Of course, we've got differing opinions. I created this group in order for there to be different opinions, and it's worked so far. No, so like Sean alluded to, it's a bit of a strange week, obviously, with us already having reviewed the Steelers game on Friday. So we're actually going to go back to almost a little bit of a predictor pod part 2. Just take the opportunity now that we've seen the teams on 3 different occasions, just be able to, see as to what we really think of the league moving forward. First of all, a little bit of news for anyone who has not been able to keep up since Thursday night football. Unfortunately, Anthony Walker suffered a torn quadricep tendon, of which means that he's out for the rest of the season. It's about a 5 to 7 month injury, unfortunately, and we, of course, wish number 5 well on his recovery. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah has seemingly been able to avoid major injury. He's currently on the bikes as we speak, actually, during training with the Browns. He and Batonio are on the bikes. Clowney and Taven Bryan are not out on the field currently. Clowney with an ankle injury and Bryan with a hamstring injury from the other night. Jedrick Wills Jr. and Ronnie Harrison Jr. are practicing today. So on the injury front, whilst there are a couple of really damaging ones in there, Walker's in particular, I'd say we've probably ended up with a little bit of luck more than anything else, compared to some in the league, and especially when you think about our conversation the other day, just as bad as it could have been, especially on the JOK front as well.
Yeah, definitely.
So, now with that out of the way, let's get a sense as to what we feel about the early season. So, Sean, like you said, looking at this weekend, you think that that there's a reasonable, there's reason to be pretty pleased as a Browns fan at the moment. Currently 2-1, should be 3-0. Currently second in the AFC, tied with a couple of other teams. What's your current main overarching thoughts on the Brown season so far?
Overall, extremely pleased with what I've seen. They dominated for the most part the Carolina game, minus a few wobbles in the fourth quarter. Dominated the Jets game for 58 minutes, minus the wobbles in the last 2 minutes, which we won't go and relive too much. And I thought for the most part, dominated Thursday night football, particularly the second half. I thought there was only one team in it in the second half, which was really pleasing. And I think you two covered it nicely in terms of the game adjustments that were made at halftime. And the Steelers did pick up a bit of momentum at the back end of the first half, and Trubisky moved the ball pretty well. But we made some good adjustments, and like so, for the most part, dominated the game. I think, look, we're all probably, let's be honest, very, very, very pleasantly surprised by the play of Jacoby Brissett. I think we all probably, felt as though he wouldn't perform at such a high level. He's been very efficient with the ball. He's very safe. There's not been huge turnovers. The only interception, correct me if I'm wrong, is the one that he was forcing at the end of the Jets game when we were obviously in desperation mode. But he's been extremely safe and efficient with the ball. His running ability in short yardage has been really beneficial. And it's something you kind of take for granted to some extent, because you just see sort of third and inches and you think, quarterback sneak and we'll pick this up. But how many times, did Baker Mayfield attempt a quarterback sneak and fumble the ball, or because he was of a slight nature, he didn't actually, be able to push the pile or whatever the case may be. I think, Brissett seems to be perfect when it comes to short yardage conversions. I haven't got any sort of official stat line in front of me, but I can't remember us failing one that was third and short or fourth and short. So I think that's the overriding factor for me, is the offense has really been the star of the show so far. There's still some concerns. I think, outside of Amari Cooper, the wide receiver room is what we thought it would be. But I think that elevated quarterback play that we weren't expecting, plus, and again, I'll give credit where it's due here, I didn't realise just how good Amari Cooper was. I was really pleased when we picked him up. Don't get me wrong, but, he is a different level to anything that we've seen in a Browns uniform. Certainly for the 15 or so years that I've been watching the team, he's by far the most polished receiver that we've had at the position. And obviously David Njoku seems to be taking the opportunity to step up now. He is tight end one and not de facto tight end one, which everybody wanted him to be when Austin Hooper was here. So I think the offense is great. I'm sure somebody else might touch on the run game, so I'm not going to gush lyrical about Nick Chubb, because I could take the whole hour doing that. I love him that much. But I think overall the offense has been so much better than anticipated. And if the defense can sort itself out, and there were signs of that in terms of a less complicated game plan, keep the call simple, play to the strengths as you guys covered in terms of press man coverage, and keep the call simplified. I'll look at the schedule. We'll get onto that. I think the Browns are in pretty good shape, and certainly could well be where they would want to be come the second half of the season.
Yeah, I think that everyone said that Jacoby Brissett, come in as a game manager. I think that he's done a fair bit more than that, as you've alluded to, and he's definitely been very efficient. Currently 9th overall in QBR, of which I don't think that anyone would have thought that he would have been going 3 weeks in, even despite the opposition. You still got a fantastic Pittsburgh defense in there. Carolina's defense was one of which a lot of people liked to at least hype up as to whether or not it's deserving of that, especially after the first 3 games is by the by. But they still had that rep, I suppose. Jen, how about you? What's your overarching thought as the Browns have taken on their first 3 games?
I think we should be 3-0, and I would have been very, very happy with that. Losing that Jets game did hurt a lot, because we shouldn't have lost it. We shouldn't have messed that up in 2 minutes' time. But same, Amari Cooper, I never knew how good he was until he played on Thursday night.
Yeah, I found it weird that we keep going to him as well. After the first game, as I alluded to after that first review as well, going to Donovan Peoples-Jones as much as we did, he looked like a very safe pair of hands, especially throwing into those tight windows. He's only had about 4 targets since that game. I don't know if there's been a bust up in training or something or other, but for whatever reason, it's all about Cooper. And now we're starting to get Njoku in there a bit more. Harrison Bryant's another one. He was heavily used in the game as well and hasn't been touched since. Don't know if that's a case of Stefanski or potentially just Brissett being more comfortable with his bigger weapons. Wine, what do you make of the season so far? I imagine that you might look towards the defense as a bit more of a cautionary tale, or are you riding on the offense in your main comment?
Yeah, we touched on it on Friday. Like, the offense has been very pleasantly surprising. I think the defense obviously been surprisingly disappointing on the same side. I think they were much better on Thursday night, and we got to hope for more of that improvement. I think we touched on it on Friday again. It was the aggressive calls of press man coverage and not giving up soft zones underneath, which seemed to make such a big difference, and is something we've been calling for as Browns fans for 2-3 seasons now since Joe Woods took over. So hopefully he continues with that aggressive mindset, gives our corners a lot of work to do in man coverage, and I think we'll see the benefits of that. And what it allows us to do as well is if they are manning up on the outside and the coverage is good, it allows us to be able to blitz some linebackers as well, which is going to be important over the next few games with Clowney looking like he's going to be injured. So we've got to create more pressure, and that's going to be artificial pressure through linebackers, you would think, and maybe even the odd corner blitz. We've seen Denzel Ward do that really effectively over the past few years. So that's probably the next step, is keeping that coverage nice and tight on the back end, and then, artificially being able to cause some quarterbacks problems over the next few.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's something which does go into that slightly, which is my main takeaway, is playing through adversity. And what I mean by that, if you look at the first 3 games, so Carolina, we went up, we took a hit, we went all the way back in quick succession and got the kick. The Jets game obviously left it too late to actually get back onto it, but on a short week where really Browns teams of old would have imploded. They would have seen that as the perfect time to have just started infighting, doing whatever to lose the next game. But no, we came back and rather controlled that game against the Steelers. And again, that's the Steelers, a team that we don't do well with, especially when our mindset isn't right. But we got our mindset right and we went about it the right way, mainly covering off the mistakes of which we'd made the week before. So, and then you start looking at potential injury worries. You need to have players stepping up. Phillips coming in for Anthony Walker, for example, was fantastic when he came in. You need performances like that, especially at the areas where they are not as strong. I'm looking at the D-line, for example, players that are having to come in, even on the O-line. You start looking at Pokic, for example. He came out with a couple of good plays, but he also has a lot still to be able to do, and he's not going to be he's not going to be JC Tretter overnight, for example, but if he can do enough to be part of the line that's moving the run game forward, and that's all you need to ask of him. So I think that there have been a number of different times where you could already have imagined previous teams giving up in a game situation or something like that, but I don't think that this Browns team is like it, and that's going to keep us in a lot of games where we would have originally just written it off, I think. Okie doke, right. I'm going to try something a little new for anyone that's watching this on the video pod version, so either the live stream or on the video Spotify here. And if I can make these little adjustments. There we go. A little bit of visual trickery there. So I've asked everyone to give me their Browns record for the end of the season. We had said in our predictor pod something around 8 to 9 wins was kind of what we said, depending on the QB situation at the time. Whereas now that we kind of know where we are, we'll see as to what everyone says. So I personally have said I've continued what I said previously, which was 10-7. The reason for that is in order to get to 10 wins, we had to get at least 3 to start the season. I think that we will do that by beating the Falcons on Sunday, personally, and that would then give us the balance to then go forward. I think that we are going to be helped by some injury concerns in the coming weeks. You look at the Patriots situation with Mac Jones at the moment. He now has a high ankle sprain, so that's a potential opportunity to play against Brian Hoyer, of which, God, I wish that we had Brian Hoyer all those years ago, but that's another story. You look at the monumental injury worries that the Chargers have. That's something else of which I think is bringing that more in play. The Bengals aren't playing to potential. The Buccaneers have some injuries and some major weapon worries of which have meant that they've slowed down. That all of a sudden, these games of which were out the water for us don't seem as out the water anymore. So that makes a 10 number more attainable. Now, Sean, you've gone. And also I said that we would reach the divisional round as well. And the only reason behind that is I expect 10-7 to get around the 6th seed, and then that might get us the AFC South winner potentially, of which that would seem more of an opportunity to win that one than anybody else. That's why I said that potentially a divisional round there. Now, Sean, you've gone for one game more at 11-6. Is there anything of which you want to add on to what I've said as a reasoning for that? Because that's quite a it's quite dominant at this point. That's 9-5 through the rest of the year.
Yeah, I think. Look, I touched on it earlier. I think the strength around the league isn't possibly what we expected in terms of. Take the AFC West, for example, which we all thought was going to be an absolute juggernaut of a division. And let's be honest, nobody's seemingly at this moment been able to get out of second gear in that division for different reasons. So I don't think that, 11-6 is that far-fetched. Like I say, I've been really impressed with how we have played up to this point. I really hope that Jets meltdown doesn't come back and bite us in the arse, because it has a feeling that it possibly will do. But we will wait and see. But look, you've just covered it perfectly. I've got to be honest, I look at the schedule for the next 3 weeks. I can see the Browns being 5-1. And I don't say that just as a completely optimistic shout. I'm really struggling to see how the Chargers start winning games over the course of the next few weeks. Losing Rashawn Slater as the left tackle is huge. Storm Norton, I think, was the backup who gave up pressure on over 50% of the snaps that he played yesterday. Myles Garrett will be absolutely licking his lips once that matchup comes around. Keenan Allen hasn't seen the field yet. We all know, and to be honest, we've got a Chargers fan as part of the full 10 yards group, and I said to him jokingly yesterday, I'm getting post-traumatic stress disorder listening about a quarterback playing when he's not 100%, because we saw how that worked out last year for the Browns. Justin Herbert, you don't get anything for being brave. You don't get anything for being gutsy other than a subpar performance compared to what you're capable of doing. So I see, potential for a win there. I would agree with Owen's comments on Friday that I think the Patriots is probably a concern in terms of their running game and the dominance and the way that they ran the ball down our throats last year. But with that being said, if the next 2 weeks pan out as I would hope they potentially do, we should be riding high. We should be at that stage 4-1. We'd be at home. They wouldn't have Mac Jones. So there's lots of things that actually I could easily see the Browns being in a really favourable position. And, I've always said I think this will come down to the divisional games. I think we really do stack up well against what the Bengals offer. That's why the Bengals have struggled to beat us over the last few years. Despite them winning the division last year, they lost both games to the Browns. I don't think Joe Burrow's actually beaten the Browns since he's been in the league. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's one team he hasn't. They still give up sacks for fun, so I don't think that's, look. There's no gimme in the NFL. All right, so let's just get that out there. It's no surprise that so many games finish by less than one score, is it? Because all the teams are very close to each other. That's the way the league's designed to be. But I like the way Stefanski coaches. I don't worry if we lose a game because he's got an excellent record after a defeat. Is he something ridiculous like 11-3 now after a defeat? I think is his record. I want to say that I read that somewhere the other day. So I think the Browns are really well positioned. I'll put the wild card round because for me, it's probably going to end up being either the Ravens, the Bills, or and I think that's probably where we're going to end up in terms of the playoffs. So we're going to go into the playoffs if we get to that spot as an underdog. But look,
you've got them probably at around a 4 seed, haven't you? Which means I know it will be a 5th seed. So actually, did you have the Browns winning the division at 11-6? 11-6 is high as a wild card. So do you have them as a wild card?
Yeah, I've still got the Ravens winning the division. So I think the Browns would end up sort of in the, like you say, either the 5th or 6th spot as a wild card. So look, 14 weeks is a long time. We could all look very stupid in 14 weeks' time, let's be honest. So.
I am banking on it so that Owain can laugh at us. Of which, speaking of, Owain, arrest us from ourselves, mate, and our rather homer views. You've got us here as 8 and 9, and let's have a bit of sobriety. Or is this just you hedging your bets?
No, to be fair, when we did our season prediction, this was. This is an improvement over what I actually thought back then. So I do think we'll win a few more games than what I originally thought. And that's purely based on Brissett looking much better, especially like we've spoken about with those injury concerns of the Chargers and Patriots. Those games instantly now more winnable than they were. I just think that, I love the saying, never too high, never too low. And I don't think I was too low after that Jets game in terms of, I thought the defense, that's not sustainable what happened in that game.
No,
that was never going to happen 3 or 4 times. That's never going to happen 3 or 4 times this season. But I do think that maybe we've gone a little bit towards the opposite direction after this last win. Let's face it, we've not played anyone any good so far. Like, you're looking at it, and probably the best team that we've played so far, realistically, maybe the
Steelers.
Yeah, maybe the Steelers, maybe the Panthers. The Panthers' defense was really good yesterday, although Baker's really having a lot of trouble on offense. But yeah, I think we may have pushed ourselves a little bit too far in the opposite direction. I think if we can get to 5-1, so if we can beat the Falcons and then, the injury troubles that the Patriots and Chargers have are too much for them to overcome and beat us, then sitting at 5-1, you can start taking shots then. Like, there's no pressure really until Watson gets back. Because realistically, if you'd have offered everyone 5 and 6, by the time Watson gets back, I'm assuming most people would have actually taken that. I think.
Yeah, I think the magic number's 6 and 5, isn't it, to be considered a contender? But 5 and 6, they'd go okay, but we would need a bit more, obviously, on the back end. And the schedule does allow you to potentially do that, but you'd have to be practically flawless.
Yeah, and I think obviously if you get to 5-1, then there's pretty much no pressure on those next 4. That would be the next 5. So. If they can get to 5-1, that would be an incredible position to be in. And, I'd probably revise my prediction then. But I've said it from the start. I think when Watson does get back, it's not going to be the Deshaun Watson that we saw in that last season for Houston, where he was really, really good. I think there's going to be a lot of rustiness there. We saw a hell of a lot of rustiness in that preseason game that he played against the Jags. He didn't look very good at all. So I don't think you can expect him to come up and then come in and score 30 points a game. So, yeah, I'll pump the brakes a little bit on the playoffs. I didn't expect us to get anywhere near them at the start of the season. I think we're likely to get closer to them than I originally thought. But I still don't think we're going to have enough.
Yeah, just a quick point here. Chris Lahane on Facebook giving us a nice little comment there. Owain, you can go sit in the corner with your hands on your head. Now, Chris, I will warn you that even though he does seem like a bit of a Debbie Downer, he's right about 50% of the time. So,
50%.
you've got to take it as a precautionary tale, all right? It's honestly meant in the best faith.
Let's not forget who was saying all off season, we can't count the Jets out. We can't count the Jets out. And I was met with, oh no, they're really, really bad. They're rubbish. And
I mean, they are. You can't legislate. You can't legislate for 123 seconds at the end of what is supposed to be just a stat padding session.
They may be bad, but we were worse.
And Spencer, to answer your question, what record does Brissett need to get us in order to stop Watson starting in week 12? Let's go with 10-1, and with him throwing about 400 yards a game, because that question's pretty much been asked to Kevin Stefanski himself, and he said, no, it's Watson's team from that Texans game, unless he gets injured. Like that was put to bed.
The only way you could see Brissett starting in week 12 would be if we had a first round pick and we were really struggling. And then you'd probably say, look, Watson, take the rest of the season off. We're in the tank. But there's no earthly chance that Brissett keeps his job after week 11. Yeah,
there's just too much money's been put into it. That's the thing. It would be... just from a balance sheet perspective, it would be considered negligence, and that's with me thinking that you wouldn't change the guard while you're winning, but there's a reason as to why he's been paid that much money. Anyway, Jen, bring us back with a bit more optimism. You've got 11-6, the same as Sean, and again wild card round. So what's your message to Owain here?
I mean, he's just being realistic. But no, honestly, I think we will go 5-1. I think we win the next 3 games, hands down. I think the Ravens are going to be tough. The Ravens are going to be a hard one, I think.
No, that's fair. I mean, I look at the Dolphins, for example, now, and I think, God, that was one of which I thought would have been a win.
No,
and now I'm looking at a loss. But the Chargers and the Patriots now are ones of which I look the other way.
Debbie Downer, you said the Dolphins were going to be really good this season as well.
I said it as well. I'm a big Tyreek and Tua fan, so I'm glad that they're putting it out there right now.
Yeah, but at the moment, I'm just seeing teams shift, which is fine. I said 10 at the start, and I'm still seeing 10. Shoot me down in December. That's all I'm going to say. Sorry, Debbie. Not happening. Right, we're just going to quickly pivot towards... I didn't realise that we were almost half an hour into the show, folks. Some of these more laid-back ones need a bit more order, I think. But just take a look at the division winners that we all have down now. And in the AFC North, 3 of us have taken the Ravens. Owain, you're the only one that's taken the Bengals. Do you think that they just turn this around? It's just a little, and also, are you just not buying the Ravens hype? Even I'm buying the Ravens hype, and I'm down on Jackson wherever I go.
They're really injured already. The Baltimore Ravens are really, really beat up already. They're a couple of injuries away from struggling, in my opinion. And I do think the Bengals offense is just too good not to be electric for a full season. So yeah, I envisage them picking up. They were much better yesterday than they had been. So I think they get much better from here. Yeah.
Fair enough. Now I think that I'm just seeing the eye test in front of me, and Sean, Jen, unless you've got anything else to add to that, yeah, for me it's the eye test.
Yeah, look, it's all a matter of opinions, isn't it? I didn't particularly think the Bengals were that impressive yesterday. They lived on short fields and turnovers by the Jets. I think they've been really disappointing. I think you look at the money they invested in the offensive line, which was supposedly the biggest problem. It hasn't really helped anything. Burrow still sacked far too often. I think Lamar Jackson's off on an unbelievable tear to start the season, which is something I was worried was going to be the case this year. He's put up absolutely phenomenal numbers in the first 3 weeks. So look, I think we said at the start of the season it's a really, really tight division, and I've got the Browns winning 11 games. So, as you said earlier, a division winner potentially is 11 games. So look, I think it's going to be as tight as it always is. I think we're all in agreement though, and we can all bask in the fact that the Steelers are officially shite.
Never count Mike Tomlin out. Right. AFC South. I am going to give credit where it's due. Owain, I'll probably never say these words to you again because you're going to enjoy them too much. I am sorry. All right.
Well, there.
I don't think the Jags will. I don't think they will win the division. Like the three of you have. I assume that a lot of this is eye test. The fact that the Titans and the Colts look terrible and the Jags look like they're just on fire at the moment. And there's a little bit of buying the hype going on. But I will admit that the Jags could win the division. I did not think I'd say that at all. I will be the last person off the ship before it casts into the good night.
Trevor
But
looks really, really good. Really good.
Yeah.
He was brilliant yesterday.
He was. I can definitely see it. I probably just need to see it a bit more sustained for a while. I'm just wondering whether or not this is just them getting on a tail, on a tear to start off the season. But I look at the fact that the AFC South all of a sudden seemed to pick itself up off the ground yesterday. The Titans beat the Raiders. The Raiders don't look the best at the moment, I'll agree. But, they still were able to come away with that win relatively comfortably. The Colts beat the Chiefs, for God's sake. That shouldn't be ignored, even if the Chiefs are calling the worst games in the world right now. The Jags are obviously doing Jags things, of which asterisk, I have no idea what Jags things are, but they seem to be doing them. And then the Texans are constantly in games, but never seem to actually come out the other side. So, yeah, all of a sudden the AFC South sort of made a punch yesterday, and the Jags are definitely the ones leading the line. So, Owain, I'm sorry. I almost made the call to social services in the summer, but I'm glad I didn't. Glad you're around, mate. Keep that straight jacket off. It's all good. Jen, very, very high on the Dolphins after that game. So even despite Josh Allen having 90 offensive snaps yesterday in 400-degree heat, Dolphins just worthy winners and all good. And you reckon that's going to continue for the rest of the year?
I think they've got it. I think the Dolphins are going to win a division. The Bills are going to go to the Super Bowl. And that's one thing I stand by.
Okie doke. So I'll just count that as a mixed bag. The AFC West, Sean, you're the one holdout on the Chiefs. The Broncos. Have you just done this? Just so that I change my voice inflection?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, to be honest, mate, I said earlier, for me, it's been the biggest disappointment of the season so far. We gave this division so much hype, and for so many different reasons, it just really, really failed to come alive. I haven't been impressed with any of the teams at all. I will give you that the Broncos have probably been as rubbish as anybody, if not even more rubbish. The Sunday night football last night, geez, if you like punting, 17 punts in a Sunday night football, good Lord almighty. Absolutely dreadful. But the one thing I would say is the only way is up. It can only get better. And that's really as much as I'm hanging my hat onto. I think the Chargers, I've said injury-wise, just can't see it happening for them as much as I think they've probably got the talent. I think these injuries are really going to kill their season before it started. The stats on if you're 0-3, how often you make the playoffs, and it's essentially never. So I think the Raiders are almost as good as done
they
already.
like to say that about 0-2, don't they? They like to say about 0-2, let alone 0-3.
Exactly, mate. So I think the Raiders are as good as done already. And then, yeah, like I say, I think it's a straight fight between the two that we've got on on the graphics. And yeah, look, the Chiefs probably more likely than the Broncos in all likelihood, but I picked them before the season. And all I'm saying is in 3 weeks, I haven't seen anything that really makes me think anything different than what I saw at the start of the season. So hopefully for Denver, the Russell Wilson experiment actually gets going at some point.
I don't think that's too far-fetched either. Like, they haven't been horrific. Like, they weren't
Good
great.
defensively. Good defensively.
Yeah,
Good
really good defensively. Like, we talk about us being really good defensively. They are just as good and get more pressure than we do. So I don't think it's too far-fetched. The Chiefs haven't looked great. They were awful yesterday.
They were.
And yeah, the rest of the division hasn't lived up to the hype. So I don't think it's not too far-fetched that the Broncos get their act together on offense and take that division for me.
Yeah, no, I get that. It's just that for whatever reason, the Broncos seem so disorganized on offense, and with it being an offensive league, I feel like I trust the Chiefs to be able to get their shit sorted and coast to the title than I do the Broncos sort out their shit on offense and struggle to the title, because I think that that's the way it would be more or less. But the inflection was definitely for the fans. Don't worry, Sean. I was getting what you were putting down, mate. It's all good. And by the way, Spencer, I know that you want to talk about the butt punt. We won't be talking about it on here, but if you listen to the 14 Yards podcast, of which will be on in about half an hour or so, you can definitely hear a lot more about the butt punt, mate. Don't worry.
Shameless
that one
plug.
Is not our bad.
Great play, I say.
Ridiculous. And if you can find the photo where the ball looks like it's actually entered inside the guy, it's got to be the most perfectly timed photo in sports history. Anyway, NFC. Sean, I'm coming to you again, bud. Justin Jefferson has had about 4 receptions in the last 2 games, and Kirk Cousins looks worse than Baker Mayfield right now. What up?
Well, you obviously haven't been watching Green Bay play then, have you? Because they've hardly been pulling up trees either, have they? So, I mean, again, mate, I think it's another one of these that for me, with 3 weeks into the season, I haven't seen enough to really make me change my mind massively. I've got real reservations about that Green Bay passing attack. It looked good for the opening drive yesterday, and then pretty much, they didn't score any points, did they, after the second quarter yesterday? So again, I still have reservations there. I think Justin Jefferson's too good to only have 4 receptions in a couple of weeks. I think that will correct itself. I think he's still going to be a major weapon for them. I think that was a huge win yesterday, coming back and getting the game winner, with sort of 40 seconds or whatever it was left on the clock. So again, I just think, like I say, 3 weeks in, I'm not changing my mind from where I started the season.
Fair enough. I'm hoping that at least the next one, maybe the next 2 are all in agreement. Yes, all Tampa Bay in the NFC South.
That's just because that division is awful.
Yes, it turns out that the worst division in football is probably the NFC South somehow. The AFC South at least has some form of competition, no matter if it is a case of worst possible denominator. But the NFC South is just the Bucs, and that's it. The NFC East, all Eagles. Yeah, okay, we're on the same page now. This podcast does have some agreement, folks, I promise. And the NFC West, all LA. There we go. So it turns out the NFC is incredibly predictable, apart from the
another
NFC
bad
North
division. That NFC West so far.
I know, it's a shocker.
Cardinals have really disappointed me so far.
Yeah, it turns out that both the West divisions have massive questions about them now. The AFC West, obviously, Chargers bad luck, but the Raiders haven't looked great. The Broncos, say what you will, but they still have a lot to prove. And the NFC West, realistically, outside the Rams, you don't really see much else. The 49ers have dropped off. The Cardinals have actually dropped off the face of the earth. And the Seahawks, the Seahawks could end up grabbing a win off the likes of the Cardinals at some point. I can see that in the future. Very quickly then, just take a look at who everyone has as wild cards and also the Super Bowl. So I've gone for the Dolphins, Bengals, and Browns in the AFC, and in the NFC, the Vikings, the 49ers, and the Lions. Sean's gone for the Dolphins, Browns, and Chiefs in the AFC, and the Packers, 49ers, and Detroit in the NFC. Wine, Dolphins, Ravens, Chargers, AFC, Vikings, 49ers, Lions, NFC. Jen, Bills, Broncos, Browns, AFC, Falcons, 49ers, Lions, NFC. The only two there that are out of kilter in terms of playoff teams. So I've put the Bengals in the conversation. I don't actually think that I know it was a wine that put the Bengals in the AFC North as winners and then put the Ravens into the wild card. I've put the Bengals into the AFC wild card. I think they're too good not to get a playoff spot personally. Jen and Sean think that they will end up bumming out. In the NFC, everyone apart from the Falcons. Jen, I mean, obviously we're going to get to the Falcons in a second. Mark is waiting patiently, awaiting his... yeah, I can see a little fist pump there, Mark, in the green room. Why the Falcons in the playoffs?
I just think they're gonna come back out of nowhere. I just feel that they've not shown the full potential
is that because
yet.
of Mariota? Is that Mariota? Is that Patterson? You know, is there anyone in particular that's caught your eye?
Not really, no. But I just think they're just gonna pull it out their ass, basically.
Fair enough. In terms of who we have down for the Super Bowl, there are two for the Bills and Eagles, with Bills winning. There's one for the Bills, Bucks, with the Bills winning, and Sean has gone Ravens, Bucks, and Ravens winning. Boo, Sean. Boo.
Don't like it, mate. Don't like it. Don't like it. But like I say, still what I said at the start, and like I say, 3 weeks in, I'm not.
Look, I appreciate journalistic integrity. All right, you seem to have that in spades, so I'm okay with that. Spencer, Jen, what happened to your preseason Giants optimism? They're 2-0. Yeah, Jen, what did happen to that? This is a Giants' dream at the moment.
Yeah, but I don't think they're going to do it. I think they're very lucky to be 2-0 right now. I don't think they get far at all.
Fair enough. Right, we are going to take a quick 40-second timeout whilst we bring Mark into the room. I just need to get the clip on, and this is a very nice highlight, actually. If you don't remember the game from 4 years ago, you definitely will after you hear this highlight.
Seems to me like you should have been working with the quarterbacks all along here. On second down, it's Chubb. Nick Chubb across the 40. One man to beat. Still going. Chubb will take this all the way. 92 yards for a Browns touchdown. The longest run in Cleveland Browns franchise history. Zeitler, number 70 in your screen right here. This is just a stretch zone run. Cuts right off of that, and the blocks outside. And then at the end, watch Antonio Callaway. Go that way. Go that way. You can outrun him, and he does. For a big man, he has a lot of speed.
Yep, so believe it or not, that was all the way back in 2018, 93-yard run for Nick Chubb there. But we're not here to talk about that, of course. We're here to talk about the upcoming Week 4 matchup on the road to the Atlanta Falcons at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. We are joined now by Mark of ATLFalconsUK. Mark, how you doing, buddy?
Hi, guys. How's it going? You all right?
Yeah, not bad, mate. I mean, you must be buzzing after yesterday, surely.
Yeah, Victory Monday feels like it's a rare feeling around here. But you know, it's not good for the heart rate. It's not good for the blood pressure. Being a Falcons fan at the best of times. So yeah, pretty elated to come out with a W last night.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if the NFL is good for anybody's heart rate, really. I certainly can't say so personally. I think if we put a poll out of Browns fans, I think that they would all agree with me as well that it's just never been good, win or lose. But let's talk Falcons for a minute, though. It's not a team that obviously we cover very much, considering that you're in the NFC. I probably know more about the Falcons because the missus is a Bucks fan, so obviously same division, and hear about them a little bit more.
I'm sorry, yeah.
It's all right. She has the least amount of disdain towards the Falcons. It's the other lot that she doesn't particularly enjoy. I think that's more because of the fact you've not delivered as much pain in the past. But anyway, how do you feel about your start to the season and, of course, the game yesterday?
I think it's fair to say that the majority of Falcons fans this season, we are very much on the home stretch of getting out of a ridiculous cap situation, which we had to suffer thanks to our previous regime. Dan Quinn, as much as he was a nice guy, and we thank him for that Super Bowl that nearly was. That what we just watched there was what we have been very much accustomed to over the years, padding out every other team's highlight reels. But this season, I think it's fair to say we just we seen improvements last year. Although with last year it was what's the most diplomatic way I can put it? I guess it was Arthur Smith's first full season. He inherited
pretty diplomatic.
He inherited a bin fire and did very, very well with it. However, I think for the sake of fairness, our schedule last year was pretty on the easy side, I guess, or at least certainly not as bad as it is this year. So I think we've had two really positive drafts. We've picked up some real big pieces on both sides of the ball. We are just kind of in that last year of constantly having to shop in the bargain bin because our cap space is non-existent. So I think it was right that Matt moved on in the off-season, to much people's horror, but I think it was the right thing. And I think what you're seeing on the Colts is kind of, don't get me wrong, the guy can still play, but he doesn't give us the mobility that our kind of quality of offensive line needed. And again, picked up a real steal in the draft with Desmond Ridder, a QB, who's kind of sitting patiently as rookie QBs kind of should the best of times behind Marcus Mariota. I'm not against Marcus Mariota. I think he does a lot of things very competently. I think the story of this season and the story of next week is going to be, at what point does Marcus Mariota want to try and throw the game away? We lost a very close game against the Saints. We lost and we came back against the Rams, and could have potentially done something against the Rams late had it not have been for a bit of Mariota magic. And he tried to do it again last night, hence my heart rate and my blood pressure this morning. So it's a very difficult space that we're all in now because we really want to see them do well. But I think we've all kind of got a little bit of mixed feelings, mixed amounts of anxiety is probably the most diplomatic way of putting it.
So just on that, because obviously as a network channel of the Full 10 Yards Network, I keep on top of you guys quite a bit. And I see a lot of, either put Ridder in or keep Mariota on. Which side of the line are you currently on? Let's say we were, let's say that we were starting this as a 50-50 coin flip tomorrow as to whether on who goes under center on Sunday. Who would you want to go under center Sunday?
I think I think what is fair and what I said at the beginning of the season is that if we are 6-7 games into the season and we're 0-7 or 1-6 or whatever, what is the value? And I think your dear friends in Pittsburgh are probably in the same kind of questioning boat as I am. Is what is the value about sitting a rookie QB behind somebody who is losing you games? So, I like Desmond Ridder going into the draft. I was really, really happy when we got him. I was elated that we managed to get him in the 3rd round because I think that's an absolute steal. I would say that how he went in the 3rd round and how Kenny Pickett went in the 1st is absolute robbery of the highest order. So I'm kind of in the boat of I'm happy for Mariota to continue. I'm not happy for Mariota to continue losing us close games. So I will not hide the fact that if it was me, I'm very close to being just put Ridder in because there's not really a great amount of value, in my opinion, of playing a vet who is losing you games when you could blood the QB early. I know it's kind of not the done thing, but if you're losing anyway,
basically you've got a blank canvas. You might as well bleed them in. It's not like you're losing anything. Yeah, I get that. Sean, did you have a question? I believe for Mark.
Yeah, it kind of follows on from what you're saying there, Mark. I suppose the argument against why you do it and why you keep the vet is obviously you've mentioned yourself there. You've had some promising drafts in the last couple of years. Drake London, I think, he's almost become the focal point in the offense, hasn't he? I think he's been targeted, sort of almost double anybody else on the team and seems to have stepped up quite a bit. But I want to talk about Kyle Pitts because he obviously came in with a lot of fanfare. Obviously, a really high selection for a tight end. I think it's the highest a tight end's ever been taken in the draft. For whatever reason, it just hasn't really seemed to have translated in the way that many people thought it would have done. I know he obviously played a bit better yesterday in terms of his volume of receptions and that type of thing. But overall, sort of, a season and 3 or 4 games in, how do you sort of assess what Kyle Pitts has brought to the team?
I think it's a really, really fair question. I think the problem with players like that is when they come out of college with the fanfare that Pitts did, and I think everyone kind of has to almost compartmentalize it. If you watch the Gators that season, him and Trask. I mean, Trask at many points during that season would just go, I'm going to throw this ball in the air and I'm really, really going to hope that Kyle Pitts is under it. And that's not negating, Kyle Pitts' ability. I think he's amazing. I think that offense still needs a lot of work. I think that there is probably a part of it that Arthur Smith's style and scheme fits a more mobile quarterback, which to be honest with you, even with Mariota, we are driving a lot quicker down the field this year with Mariota than we have done with Matt Ryan last year. Now, yes, that's due to mobility, but I also think that it's just the comfort within the scheme. And where do you put a tight end that, isn't a tight end, but isn't a receiver? How does that, because you essentially have to build your scheme around that, right? And I think there's, Arthur's made kind of no bones about the fact that he's still a new head coach. He's still learning. He's still making mistakes. And, I like the way that he is extremely rude to the Atlanta media, because the Atlanta media are awful at the best of times. I like his attitude, and every single time where somebody is to blame, he always makes sure that it's known that it's his fault. It's not the player's fault. I trust Arthur Smith to get it right. I think it will take some time. But I think one thing to bear in mind is, especially last year, with Calvin Ridley being on the ban, we literally had Kyle Pitts, Russell Gage, and, Zacchaeus still our WR3, who's still picking up, maybe 60, 70 yards a game. I think we just look a lot more threatening now than we did last year. Whereas last year it was very much a case of, why aren't you throwing to Pitt? Well, because he's getting double teamed, because he's the only threat we've got. I don't feel like that's the case this year. I think defensive coordinators are still very, very apprehensive of the fact that whenever he's on the field, anything could really happen. But I'm again this year just kind of feels like a bit of a transitional one. I'm happy for the football to be transitional as long as they're giving it a good go. And so far, okay, we had a fourth quarter collapse against the Saints. Hate to tell you guys, but as an Atlanta fan, that ain't new. So, and we took the Rams very, very close. And that, the Super Bowl champions, the Rams. I know they don't appear as good as they were last year, but that's still no hardship. We did make Geno Smith look like prime Tom Brady last night at times, which was quite terrifying. So we've got work to do on both sides of the ball, and I think that offense now is really starting to look like a dangerous NFL offense. Because if you double on Kyle Pitts, you miss Drake London. We seen that last night. The kid is not built like a normal wide receiver, and he was pushing safeties and linebackers out of the way for fun last night to go into the end zone. So I think it's let's just chalk it down to, we'll see some stuff this year. I always thought we were going to be fun to watch. I'm reevaluating my definition of the word fun right now, but and it's definitely it's definitely exciting, and it's towards the end of Dan Quinn's era. My word, it's chalk and cheese. So optimistic.
Fair enough. And just before we say goodbye to you, obviously looking at Sunday's game, give us your one key to the game from a Falcons perspective that you think is going to be important, and then a prediction as well for the game on Sunday.
Sure. So one of our players who had an amazing impact last season, our previous number one pick, AJ Terrell, he had an absolutely unreal season last year. Was ranked number 2 cornerbacks in the league. We've had some challenges this year against that, and but I think the main kind of battle for me is between AJ Terrell and Amari Cooper. He's the one. He's the one player, apart from your ground game, that I've got real nightmares over, I would say. And fair play to Jacoby Brissett. I think he's working that relationship well. I think that's that says a lot about him as a player coming in under the circumstances that he has. So that connection's there. The Browns, despite everything that's kind of gone on in the offseason, you guys still look like a very, very dangerous, very, very functional team. I think it's going to be a close game again. I'm obviously going to say, because I'm a very, very optimistic human being, that I think we take it probably about 27-24. But it also wouldn't surprise me one little bit if you guys, do a number on us, because, like I say, that Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, our run defense isn't great. I mean, our pass protection is not great either. So I think, like I say, Falcons right now feel really unpredictable. So I'm going to go with a win. I'm going to say 27-24, but big respect to you guys. I think Stefanski's done a great job. So good time to be a Browns fan.
No, we do appreciate that, mate, and we appreciate you coming on as well. Do you want to give yourself a quick shout out for the pod as well, just so that people are aware in case they have Falcons mates that they want to turn them on to?
Sure. So if you want your notifications to be broken on a Sunday whilst all 4 of us tweet simultaneously and swear at each other during the game,
good
just
Lord.
I think a lot of people have hit.
I don't let these guys on the Believeland Brit handle. I think it would end up coming apart.
If you're of a subtle disposition, maybe not. But we obviously run our own pod as well. So ATLFalconsUK on Twitter, and we're on all of the other socials if you've got Falcons friends. Guys, genuinely best. I mean, I would say best of luck for this Sunday, but I won't. But I'll say best of luck for the rest of the season. And thank you to whoever it was who said that we were in the wildcard race.
Yeah, that would be Jen up there in the in the top right.
Jen, I think you guys alluded to it earlier on. Like you guys said, our division is a bin fire right now. Listen, Jen, I'm all aboard. All aboard. So.
No problem.
Made the conference is a bin fire.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%.
Exactly. Keep it going. Keep the fire burning. But no, really appreciate you, Mark. You take care. Enjoy the game Sunday, but I hope that you enjoy it with just a slight tinge of regret towards the end, shall we say. But no, absolutely capital, mate. You take care. Cheers, mate. So that was the view from our friends over at the ATL Falcons UK channel. Now we'll spend a little time going through it ourselves. Sean, what do you have as your key to the game? What do you think that you'll be saying come kickoff?
Yeah, keep Mariota in the pocket. I mean, Mark's just alluded to there. He's obviously much more mobile. I think he'll try and naturally move the pocket away from the pressure that Myles Garrett will try to bring. One thing that you picked up on yesterday, and I know it annoyed the hell out of you, was how often Jake Matthews seemingly got away with a false start.
Every time.
So we shall see what happens on Sunday in that regard. But I think, look, if we can keep Mariota in the pocket, that's our best chance because, I think, let's trust that this cornerback room sorted itself out. Like I say, I think they've simplified things. I think Owen was right that they're not going to. I don't think we're going to get a repeat of that Jets fiasco, are we? I think they're going to keep things simple, keep things in front of them. And I would trust their corners to win the majority of those matchups. JOK being on the bikes is an encouraging sign. I'd obviously feel a lot happier if he was on the field with regards to Kyle Pitts. But I think that's the key for me. Keep Mariota in the pocket. If he can beat you with his arm, good luck to him. I'd take our chances based on the matchup on paper.
Yeah, so I'm glad that you brought up the Jake Matthews thing because I'd practically forgotten it. And seeing as you've taken my point anyway and keeping Mariota in the pocket, I'm just going to sound off on this for a quick second. If you want a fantastic drinking game this week, watch the game in 40 of the Falcons game because every single offensive snap, Jake Matthews up like a good one, a good half second to a second before anybody else moves. And the refs did nothing all game. So in fact, my point of the game is whoever's matched up alongside him, be it Garrett, Clowney, whoever, just wrestles him to the ground every single time he pops up because there's only one way you're going to get flags by the looks of it. It's going to be that. But no, I digress. I think that my points are actually covered by you and also by Mark, keeping Pitts under wraps, but also ensuring that the safeties can handle Drake London as well. That's going to be important because he's showing himself to be a really good acquisition by the Falcons. Jen, what do you have as your key to watch?
I just want our defense to have a good game and us just to play like we used to play. Coming into this, our defense was the best, and right now it's mediocre at best. Yeah, I don't want it to be a close game because it just stresses me out, and I ain't got time for that.
Yeah, I think that we'd all quite like it to go how it's supposed to, really. I think that we started, Owen, you might be able to tell me differently here. I think that we started 5-point favourites, I think it was, or something like that. Or am I reading a different line? Yeah, no, I'm seeing a slight nod. Yeah, I think it's 5. I'd like us to be kind of in the same situation as last week where we have 2 scores, and even if they're on the ball, it doesn't seem too terrible because there isn't enough time for them to come back. It's practicing actually having a lead and keeping it with this young group, I suppose. Owen, what's your key point? Or are you currently looking up the spread?
I was
Yeah, he's looking at the spread. I knew it.
It wasn't coming up.
I'll tell you what, you tell us your key point, I'll look at the spread for you.
Yeah, my key point is, well, I wrote down what I might be saying is that I might be wrong on Drake London. I wasn't the biggest fan of him actually coming out. We were obviously at the start of the off-season in the market for a wide receiver early on in the draft. So I did quite a bit of watching of said wide receivers at the top of last year's draft, and I wasn't a fan of London. There's something about him scared me. Didn't like the amount of contested catches he had and those things, and reminded me a little bit of players like Jalen Reagor who have not worked out in the league. So I wasn't real high on Drake London last season. And he started off really well. Let's face it, he started off really well this season. So we touched on it a little bit on Friday, that the matchup that scares me a little bit is him against Denzel Ward, just because Denzel in the past has struggled against bigger body wide receivers. Like I mentioned on Friday, Cortland Sutton for the Denver Broncos stands out as someone he struggled against in the past. So Denzel Ward takes Drake London out of the game, and I think we're all good.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, mate, it was 2.5. Sky Bet currently have it at 3, which I'm definitely considering banging that over. Not that I bet on Browns games and bet responsibly if you do. So yeah, let's
just picking up on a little betting point there. I started doing my pick'ems right at the start of our pod, and the Cards are actually underdogs against the Panthers.
What?
Which
Okay.
surprised me greatly.
Now, are they underdogs by the spread,
Yeah, no,
or are
they
they underdogs by the picks?
Because it's got the odds underneath them on the pick'em, and
that's right. Yeah,
it's
it
not
does.
far off even, but Cards are dogs.
Yeah, Cards +1 is the spread.
Cards +1 against Baker Mayfield and the Panthers. God.
Yeah, that may be something that I take a look at this weekend, I think.
Yes, and of course, bet responsibly. Can't stress that enough. If you don't, it's not our fault. But now that you've mentioned the pick'ems, let's go back to the board here and go through our pick'ems for this week. First of all, I'd like to point out that we're actually very close in terms of the pick'ems league now. So I'm currently leading us with 29, but Sean and Owain, you've actually made up a little bit of ground this week. You've got a point on me this week and got up to 27. So there's only 2 points between us now. I think I'm something like 93rd in the country or something, which is showing that we're pretty good as a pod overall. Turns out that we actually know our stuff. Turns out that the missus, who knows a hell of a lot less than me, is doing better than me on margin, on Thursday night football margin somehow. So I'm going to class that as she's been taught well, but she'd probably say completely different there. So as we look at our picks for this week, Dolphins Bengals, it's a sweep for the Dolphins. Vikings Saints, a sweep for the Vikings in London. Broncos Patriots, a sweep for the Broncos. And Chiefs Bucks, I wasn't expecting a sweep for the Chiefs there, but there's a sweep for the Chiefs there. There are only discrepancies in 2. Titans and Colts, 3 of us have gone. No, sorry, it's a 2-2 split. Josh and Sean have gone for the Titans. Owain and Jen the Colts. That is an interesting one indeed. Realistically, that one could be a 50-50 flip. And I guess that will go a long way to seeing as to... Yeah, it depends. That has a huge ramifications, obviously, on the division as well, especially on looking at it going forward. And Bills Ravens, Sean stands alone, backing the Ravens over the Bills, only when it comes to pick'ems, folks. I don't think that he'll be actively rooting for the Ravens whatsoever when it actually comes to game day. Why is that, by the way, Sean? You've gone for Ravens there over Bills. Were you just not convinced by what you saw on Sunday for the Bills? Because I look at the Ravens games and I think that teams are always in with a chance of taking them, whereas the Bills, I think that yesterday was more of an anomaly.
No, I just think they're severely banged up in terms of the secondary. I'm not sure from an injury status how much of an improvement that's going to be 1 week on. I think we talked about it before we hit the record button that, half of the offense seemingly were collapsing with exhaustion from the heat that they were playing in. That's going to have emotionally taken a lot out of them as well. I just think the fact that the Ravens are at home, look like I say, I certainly won't be rooting for it at all. I really hope that they do get beaten. But like I said earlier, I think unfortunately Lamar started like a train this year, and potentially that's a bit of a statement game. So look, I think those two that we've got discrepancies on for a reason. They could go either way. It wouldn't be a surprise to see the Bills win, obviously, but certainly not Spencer. Certainly not. Certainly not.
Yeah. So our usual commentator on these live streams, Spencer Brown's come out with a. Let's say I can understand why he's put it on this week, considering the optimism that you give Ravens fans this week. Is Sean a Ratbirds fan deep down? I can absolutely 100% back Sean's claim here that he's definitely not. I put a pint or two down Sean, and you'll see exactly what his thoughts are on the Ravens. But he's providing his humble opinion, folks, honestly. And, definitely it's a 50-50 game, Bills Ravens, personally. It's why it's in that pick six. It's supposed to be the most difficult ones of the week. I find it weird that we had four the same, let alone having just two discrepancies in the six. Anyway, folks, that is us for the week. A little over time, but I'm sure you'll agree it's been a really fun pod, being able to look at everything so far and predict things going on in the future. We will be back this time next week, 7:30 next week, to review obviously the Falcons game, and we'll also have Lee Wakefield of Powder Blue Report coming in to give us his thoughts on the LA Chargers and that matchup. I don't think he's a very happy chappy currently, considering all the bad luck of the last couple of weeks. Bless him, but no, we'll get his views for next week as well. Remember to hit the subscribe button wherever you see this. So if you're on Facebook, follow us. If you're on Twitter, give us a follow at Believeland Brit. If you're on Spotify or any of the other platforms, hit that hit that follow or subscribe button, because trust me, it really does help get it out to more people, algorithms and all that noise. Don't forget as well, we are a part of the Full 10 Yards Network, and we are jumping onto another pod now. Sean and I, we do the NFL podcast on a Monday evening as well, so you can find that at your favorite podcast vendor, as well as a number of other podcasts. I do a Power Rankings podcast on a Wednesday, for example, so you can see as to where we are in the rankings. We were 18th, I believe, last week, just to give you a flavor of that. Have I placed us higher? Yes, but not too much. Not all too much, but enough. I'm being restrained. Not 10th, unfortunately, not 10th, Sean. I'm sorry.
Just you're a Ratbirds fan, Josh. You're a Ratbirds fan. What's the matter with you?
Oh God, have I put the Ravens in my top 5 this week? I don't think I have. I think I've resisted the temptation to do that, but you can find all that out at Full 10 Yards on Twitter as well. Tomorrow, I'll be posting out the rankings for that tomorrow. But no, thank you very much, everyone, for spending the last hour and a quarter with us. We will see you next week, and that is the Believeland Brits podcast.